So we also die in the carnal man as Yahuwah died through Yahushua. As we read in 2 Corinthians 5 verse 17, for instance, that we become a new creation. We are reborn, and because of that we can remarry our first love, which is Yahuwah. That is what Jeremiah 31 talks about. Yahuwah saying he will make a renewed covenant, a new covenant with the house of Yisrael in those days, where he writes his covenant on our hearts. He is remarrying Israel. And he can do that because he died. And of course rose again from the dead. And so he can remarry us. Otherwise, if that was not the case, he could not remarry us. He could not remarry Israel. Because you can read in the Old Testament that he divorced Israel because of adultery, spiritual adultery. So let's see a summary of Deuteronomy 24 then, verse 1 to 4. Yahuwah gives instructions for the divorce entailing 3 steps, which are repeated twice for clarity and confirmation. Yahuwah equates divorce with being widowed, with either one setting the spouse free to remarry except to the first spouse. Yahuwah specifically prohibits under any circumstances the return of a spouse to a former spouse after being married to another. And finally, if remarriage after divorce was not allowed at all, then these 4 verses could have been totally left out of the Torah altogether, since the whole purpose is to say that a divorced spouse or one widowed from a second marriage could not return to a former spouse. If there was no remarriage, no discussion of returning after a subsequent marriage would be necessary. Leviticus 21 verse 7. They shall not take a wife that is a whore or profane, neither shall they take a woman put away from her husband, for he is holy unto his Elohim. This put away should be divorced. In the New King James Version it is divorced. In the New King James Version the words put away are corrected to be divorced, which agrees with the Hebrew word here, which is garusha, or divorced, and not shalak, or put away. Again, if no remarriage were allowed for anyone, then this scripture would not be needed at all. But since man shall live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of Yahuwah, it is here for a reason, and part of that is to show that remarriage was allowed, although not for priests. Leviticus 22 verse 13. But if the priest's daughter be a widow or divorced, and have no child, it is returned unto her father's house as in her youth, and she shall eat of her father's meat, but there shall no stranger eat thereof. If a divorce or widowhood caused a woman to be defiled, then it is doubtful that she would be allowed back in her father's home, and to eat of the priest's holy foods. This scripture makes it very clear that a widow or divorced woman is not defiled, but is considered the same as before she married. Interestingly, she cannot eat of his food if she is married to a stranger, as this would mean that she is sinning by committing idolatry. But if she is divorced, she is still able to eat from her father's table, showing that being divorced is not a sin, nor does it defile one. Okay, I'm just going to skip and look at the New Testament scriptures now. The first and therefore the primary text in the New Testament covering divorce and remarriage is Matthew 5 verse 31 and 32, as this is the first complete discussion of this matter in the New Testament. It acts as a cornerstone by which all other scriptures must line up, just like Deuteronomy 24 verse 1 to 4 in the Old Testament. Therefore, I will spend quite a bit of time covering the text, including a detailed look into the Greek words used therein. As previously discussed, there are 2 different words in the Hebrew and in the Greek, denoting divorce versus put away. These words in the Greek are as follows. The distinction between the 2 is critical to a correct understanding of the text. Strongs 647 in the Greek. You can go look it up. apostation, writing of divorcement. That is what it's. And if you can read it, you see it's all about divorce and divorcement. The G647. This word exists in the Greek text 3 times, and in all 3 times it is rendered into the English word writing of divorcement, and it is a legal term. There are no other words used to mean this in the New Testament. It denotes a written document that determines the marriage contract, and as such has its own word in Greek as well as in Hebrew. It is not the same word as apoluo, meaning put away, which refers to a spouse that is sent away without a writing of divorce. Remember that Yahuwah's instructions include 3 steps in a divorce. Write the divorce paper, put it in the hand of the other spouse, put away or send away the spouse. Strongs 630, apoluo, put away. This word exists in the Greek text 70 times, 70. And in 69 it is rendered sent away or released, or some form of these words. Only once, in Matthew 5:32, is it rendered differently in error to be divorced. As seen above, the word in Greek for divorced is apostation, not apoluo. So the correct translation of Matthew 5:32 is used below. Matthew 5 verse 31 and 32. Yahushua speaking. It hath been said, whoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. Notice the use of the 2 separate words here, one meaning put away and one's meaning divorce. In Matthew 5:17, Yahushua says that he has not come to do away with the law, and here he repeats Deuteronomy 24 verse 1, and then goes on to make a further clarification. He does not change the law, as that would violate what he just said in verse 17. But as he so often does, he repeats from the Torah and then clarifies or magnifies it more fully, saying, But, and I say unto you, that whoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is put away, committeth adultery. See, the word here used is apoluo, 630, G630 in the Strongs, and not divorced. Only the American Standard Version and the Scriptures correctly translates the word apoluo here in the end of verse 32 as put away, which it most clearly is. The word must be put away and not divorced. That confuses the people. That mistake. And what a great difference this one word makes. According to Deuteronomy 24 verse 1, a man may marry a woman who has a written divorce, but he may not marry one who does not, but who has only been put away. Once the translation is corrected, it lines up perfectly with Deuteronomy 24. Yahushua further tells them that if they are sending away their wives without giving them a divorce paper, unless the wives have committed fornication, of course, then the men themselves are causing the wives to commit adultery. Why is this? Because in their culture, the woman would have had to seek assistance from another man or perish. Being put away or sent away meant that she would have nothing. If in this time period and before, as documented in extra biblical writings such as the Jewish Encyclopedia, among others, it is written that the marriage contract included what portion of the wife's dowry would be returned to her in case of divorce. Yahushua is citing a case where the husbands are just, sending away their wives and not following the whole law by writing her as divorced, because then he would have to return her dowry.